Howard, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first, I believe that especially fluorescent will stay a viable technology through 2020 and way beyond. The millions of T12 fixtures that are out there, especially on the indoor portion of things, that will be required to be upgraded throughout the years as the codes kick in and people are mandated to make a change, or they just can't find the lamp anymore because it's not going to be on the Home Depot shelf anymore. They will use T8 and T5 technology along with LED technology. And again, with the T8 and T5 technology, lamping exceeding 80,000 hour life, it's going to still stay viable. LED, similar to the computer processors that continually kept increasing in speed and making older processors obsolete, in not too many years, by the way. The increased lumen output and decreased input wattages at LEDs, getting well over 100 lumens per watt, will obviously continue. But I also believe that in my lifetime we will be able to do things such as get into our cars and walk into any type of a room, whether it be an office environment or your home, and there'll be systems in place that will allow us to have the mood that you're emitting be adjusted to the environment, and whatever task that you were planning to perform, it's going to know the task that you're going to plan on performing, and it's going to put the room into that environment, whether it be through the temperature, whether it be through the lighting, whether it be through the color. And something like that may take a chip being installed in us as a person someplace, but I really think that that technology is not that far around the corner, and I believe in my lifetime we're going to see something like that.
So if I could distill the conversation that we've had here today, and really the conversation that I hear in the industry today, we're talking about controls, we're talking about sensors, building automation, interaction with other trades in the construction industry, wireless controls. That kind of all falls into a interconnectedness category. And I'd say there's three categories right now that distill the topics of conversation. The other one's quality of light. So we talked a lot about LED quality and where the industry's headed and how people weren't happy with fluorescent in many ways, particularly some of the early CFLs. So I think quality will be increasingly part of our conversation as we move forward. And it's interesting that we've expanded into those areas because it was all efficiency. And efficiency was a big part of our conversation today as well. But if you distilled everything, I think it fell into interconnectedness, quality of light, and efficiency. And as our industry gets more complex, which is a normal evolution of any industry, then what's going to matter to the consumer is always their best value. These areas are going to define the products and the services, but the customer is going to go to the best value proposition that they can get. And ultimately, the product that offers the easiest installation and interconnectedness, or wireless connection communication, the easiest, most intuitive or adaptive type of product is going to be valued. And the quality is ultimately going to be valued because people buy light, they don't buy lighting fixtures, they want the end result of light. And efficiency will always be a value, and there'll be some return on investment justification for that. I think the people that can combine that best, maybe with services, turnkey, whatever it may be, are the ones that will continue to be successful in this industry.
Thank you. Terry?
Well, I really hit two subjects pretty hard because of where I'm coming from here. We started out talking about light and health and lighting for the elderly. Two major topics that aren't well integrated into our recommendations and practices right now. So I think if we're going to look ahead a couple of years, through a time of very rapid change, I think those have to be integrated in so we know how to use them as an industry. So we know how to build products, we know how to write recommendations, we know how to do designs, we know how to tell people how to use this and why it's good for them, and how to make life better because of it. So I see this as a very important role for the lighting industry, not only to make the products, but also to tell how to use them for better quality of life. And the other thing is within outdoor lighting. In many ways, we've distorted the practice of outdoor lighting by concentrating so much on efficiency. And that has led us down some paths which we know are wrong environmentally and also for this light and health reason that I mentioned. we have to put that quality back in, and we have to get that into those practices, and we have to get it into the design area of where we use outdoor lighting, everywhere from residential to the largest street lighting. So I want to see us do that. And if there was one thing I would focus on, it would be this glare idea. We don't have a metric for glare. We don't understand glare very well. So glare research has to be done as a priority if we're going to really make a difference. If we can value glare, if we can put some dollars and cents on it, if we can put some numbers on it, I think that's going to be a major step forward, because once we can measure it, then we tend to find ways to meet those measures, to meet those limits, and to factor it into our whole design process. So I'm hoping, and I'm pretty confident, that we can make some real headway over these next few years.
Jim?
And I think the future is bright for all of us in the lighting industry. Then my bias certainly is on the control side of where we're going. And I think that there's been an evolution in controls, and by 2020 we're going to see a lot of additional innovations. And certainly it's somewhat code driven that we've talked a lot about. And the codes today are really power codes. They're not energy codes as we actually call them. Yeah. And the codes will lead to, as we know more about how buildings operate, and that's one of the areas that is being focused on. Cities are now requiring people to report what their building is using energy-wise. Now that when we know what buildings use, we can now base codes on pure energy, kWh as opposed to just kW. And the large percentage of existing buildings will be here in 2020 and beyond. 85% of the buildings in 2020 and even 2030, 85% of those buildings are here now. So it's really looking at that retrofit market, and the big majority of those are small buildings. So it's having the cost-effective controls and lighting for application in the small and mid-sized buildings is critical for us to deal with. It's not just about energy. Lighting designers, certainly they need to meet the code, but they also have to blend and enhance the architecture. So work with the architect, or residentially work with end users, the homeowners, and so they have to provide light that helps amplify the architecture, and besides being good for people, and the lighting has to be of high quality, as we talked about. And whether it's a new, unique, some of these really wild design buildings that we see, certainly in the Far East and other places, but also the brick and mortar buildings that, certainly here in the Northeast, we have a lot of lighting can enhance as we renovate and retrofit those buildings. We need, high quality designers, and the new people coming along who are in the design profession, whether it's through the IAS or the IALD, those are the people that will be doing that lighting design, and controls will be an integral part of that.
Thank you. Jay?
First of all, this was a great session, very enjoyable and very educational. My own personal, just in closing, is my fear is that as an industry, we potentially focus too much, we drink potentially too much of our own Kool-Aid, and focus too much on the technology, and too much on the economics, and forget the fact that basically lighting fixture is creating an experience either inside a space or outdoor, etc. And I just unfortunately think we and potentially through mandate try and force a technology as opposed to letting a market decide what they want to work under, what they want to live under, and how they want it to be, and what in their mind is good enough. And if somebody wants to overlight a building because they're really happy with an overlit building and they want to overpay for it, I think they should be allowed to do that. So that's a concern of mine. And the economic drivers of looking at lighting as strictly a cost, and how do we reduce the cost of lighting at the expense of potentially lighting something properly, I think is a concern of mine as well. And to the technical aspect, John, I think to your point about the potential lack of diversity in leadership in our industry is maybe because the leaders are from more of the technical side. I really think that I'd love to see a reverse course and see more of the market sales side get into leadership. The better connection to the people that are actually buying and using lighting as opposed to the people that are developing the technology that we want people to run out and buy. So my last point is also as a husband and father concerned about the driver for economics and controls versus the perceived compromise in safety. Like when I hear about motion control indoor parking garages where lights are potentially off or dimmed down 90%, or street lights or site lighting that's going off at night, you know, I mean, I have a wife, I have daughters, and I wouldn't want them walking into a parking garage where the lights are dimmed 90% in an effort to save, you know, a few $1,000s a year. So as efficiency lowers the costs of lighting, I think there's a diminishing return point of where you can control it or turn it off for that extra 15 or 20% worth of savings at the compromise of potential safety or just overall aesthetic or feel. So those are my points in closing. But this was really an honor to be this group is an honor to be a part of, and this was really a lot of fun.
Mary Beth?
You know, I heard someone start a talk just a few months ago talking about today's lighting industry and calling it, you know, LEDs being the digitization of lighting. And, you know, it really hit home. You know, we went to, you know, we looked at solid state televisions, and now we don't even have picture tubes anymore, and everything's gone to, you know, plasma and LCD and OLEDs and LEDs, and it really hit home, you know, going to a lighting world with no tubes. Well, you know, maybe not quite so quickly. I think, just to quote someone, you ain't seen nothing yet, and that we have the promise of not only some of the most energy efficient solutions, but even more importantly, perhaps solutions that can create more user satisfaction than ever before. So always remembering that people are first, that lighting is for people, and how can we find the very best lighting solutions for people. And, you know, as the technology continues to evolve, the value proposition for LEDs continues to evolve. And the metrics that help really define the performance of those LEDs continue to evolve. And, you know, we have to catch ourselves and stop thinking in terms of maybe straight payback and ROI, which certainly don't do justice to a very long life system. You know, we have to start thinking in terms of cost of ownership. And perhaps, as you just mentioned, we have to really stop focusing maybe quite so much on economics. Boy, we're shooting ourselves in the foot and maybe turning off some really great lighting applications just because the economics don't work. Can't we just do it because we want it? I mean, when's the last time you asked for payback when you saw a pair of shoes you wanted, or you buy a piece of art? So I mean, come on, well, you want what you want, and let's not talk people out of it because the economics don't fit. And just one other thing, there's plenty of room for non-LED technologies. There are some that are going to be hit really hard. I mean, I'll just go out on a limb, right? Downlights and accent lighting for commercial and institutional and public spaces are going to go LED. It's just, they're great performing, they dim, they have great color quality. Fluorescent's not going anywhere anytime soon. Matter of fact, light source technologies are really tough to obsolete. They may kind of get lower and lower in prominence, but to get rid of them completely, very, very tough. And finally, there's plenty of room for all the stakeholders in the lighting business. They all can add value to the whole process. So whether you're you're an agent, you're a designer, you're a distributor, you're an ESCO, I mean, there's people that really can drive greater and better applications and identify opportunities. And so getting all of these stakeholders involved, I wouldn't be afraid that someone's going to drop out of the loop because, you know, they're all needed.
Thank you. Charlie?
Well, this has been a great experience for me and a great group to be a part of. There's no question in my sense is, as far as the market is concerned, the manufacturer is concerned, I think there's going to be some changes as you go down the line. I think the traditional manufacturer will still be there. I think they will change the way they bring product to market. I think you're going to see proliferation of electronic manufacturers coming into this in the way they treat. They may be teaching us some things that we learned through the computer industries. You know, along with this, there's a tremendous promise with the new lighting LEDs. I agree with Mary Beth that the traditional lighting is not going to go away very soon, i.e. F40s are still in the sockets. So that's going to be an evolution. There's some application to the LED that lends itself to greater adaptability. We're talking about where a lighting system may be very difficult to reach. We're talking about the outdoor lighting system. I think the biggest thing that's going to drive the LED is the controllability. So as that comes into play, it's important, as Mary Beth says, we need to get all the stakeholders in place. I approached as I have this morning is from the maintenance standpoint. And our biggest concern is the people that have to install these things and have to maintain these things, is that there's a system put in place where the maintenance and replacement of the defective product are going to be done seamless. The consumer should not have to suffer. It is, if we believe in LEDs and we live longevity in LED, that they're going to burn, the percentage of failure is going to be such a small percentage. Not to put something in place and make this happen very easily, very quickly, is just going to give the industry a black eye. So from the manufacturer's standpoint, and from the lighting professional, we, as the people who have to install it and maintain them, look for support, look for the education. Ultimately, we're going to be the ones going out there and doing the controls and repairing the controls and repairing the lighting, the LED lighting, as we do now with the traditional lighting system. So there's an expectation out there that perhaps the consumer is not thought of, and I know they have not thought of it, because we have sat down with them and talked about how do we replace a light stick in a frozen recheck. Well, don't you have it in your truck? No, we don't have it in our truck. So they don't realize this yet. And once they start realizing and start suffering the consequence of something being left dark for much longer than they ever had to experience, that's going to be where the negativity comes in. And that's the negativity we had with the compact fluorescent, with the first iteration of the electronic ballast. It gets a black eye, okay? And that's a thing from an industry, everybody, that's the last thing we want to put out there.
All right, thank you.
It is very refreshing to me to think that people are out there buying a lighting product because they value something about it that they can't put a value on, that they can't ascribe a metric to. We want LED lighting because we think it conveys something that about us. It is part of our brand, perhaps, or whatever it may be. And why that excites me is that it is getting us away from, as others have mentioned, this strictly bottom line mentality, which I really don't mind that much, except it's based strictly on energy savings in many cases, and not on all the other things that lighting can do for you. Years ago, I heard from the president of the organization, who regrettably his name escapes me right now. He said, you always need to ask this question: why do we have light here? It certainly isn't to consume energy, and it certainly isn't to save energy. It's to do things for us, so that we can read, so that we can play, relax, or whatever it is. Without that lighting, we're essentially useless. It's in the same category, I guess, as indoor plumbing and air conditioning. And we really need to try to educate the public to get that appreciation, so that they can have a better focus on what we call, what we call high benefit lighting, so that they appreciate more what it can do for productivity, what it can do for safety, what it can do for security, what it can do for health, what it can do for our older citizens. And many of these things can have values ascribed to it that are significant, but again, you can't necessarily bring it down to dollars and cents, especially paying it forward. So from everything I've heard, that is perhaps the thing that I personally take away, because this is something I've been doing personally for 30 some odd years, and that is to create more awareness and appreciation for the benefits of lighting.
Okay, thank you, John. And that concludes our panel discussion, Shedding Light on 2020. Thank you.